You can say what you want, but I never been scared. No, I never been scared. No, I never been. I just won't.
Welcome to the More Than Sports Podcast, where everyone has a story. Today we speak with Anthony Gregory. Anthony is a current rugby player for the New Orleans Green, and he represents 4 other teams in the greater New Orleans area. Anthony is an old college friend, and on today's episode, Anthony shares his thoughts and his insights about life, politics, and more. Thank you for joining. Now let's start the conversation. Welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you taking some time out to talk with us today.
I just want to say
But
one thing real
my
quick.
first question is,
I just want to say one thing real quick. The one thing that I want you
Okay.
to remember from college, do you remember going to get those wings at IHOP at like 3 o'clock in the morning? Because they had that sauce. And IHOP has gotten rid of the sauce, man. I'm so mad. I went there to try to get those wings with that sauce, and they got rid of it, bro. I'm mad.
no, I do remember the 3 a.m. wing runs. Believe it or not, I was talking to Jeff last week, and we were bringing up the 3 a.m. wing runs to going out to West Monroe.
Yes, sir.
So it was about a 30, 45-minute drive at 3 a.m. just to get some wings. And everybody else would fall asleep on the way back other than the driver. And sometimes the driver fell asleep on the way back. So you can imagine that. But no, I guess my first question is just when did you start playing sports?
I was probably 6 or 7 years old when my mom decided that I could start playing midget football when I was a kid, flag football on the Big Island down in Alexandria, Louisiana.
Okay. Did you have any significance about sports growing up? I know you say you have 2 brothers.
Yeah,
so
I
did
do
you guys
have 2
any
younger
competition
brothers.
in the house or?
Yeah, I have 2 younger brothers, Brandon and Jordan. Actually, Brandon played basketball at Northwestern, and Jordan played soccer at Southern. So we were, a pretty athletic family. The thing that got me into sports, honestly, was watching my dad do his rec league stuff when I was a little kid. Obviously, I was a fan of American football because I grew up in America, obviously. And my dad, being a big fan and watching him participate and watching the camaraderie and whatnot, I always was driven to sports. And my dad also believed that everybody needs to play sports because you need to learn to either lose or win as a team. He just always thought that was a valuable skill.
So what sports did your dad play?
So dad played football and basketball and wood bat baseball because he was really good at baseball. My dad actually had the opportunity to go to Ohio State to play football, but my grandmother got sick, and so he joined the military instead so he could help take care of her.
That could have been a totally different story, man. We could have never met if you ended up in Ohio, right?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you never know.
As you grew up in like middle school and high school, did you play sports then, or what did you play when you were in kind of middle school and high school?
So I played every sport that I could play except for basketball because I can't shoot to save my life. Even layups are an adventure for me. I tell people I got 5 fouls. You just tell me where you want them at, and I'll put them there. You know what I'm saying? But football and baseball were probably my 2 favorite sports growing up. I got taller than everyone real quick, so I was really, really good at football and baseball. And then I stopped growing, and everybody got taller than me. And then I got taller again once I got to college.
Growing up, kind of coming up, I think we've all had people that have been influential in our lives. Have you had any impactful coaches or mentors when you were growing up, when you started playing in junior high and high school?
So the one coach that impacted me, 2 coaches that impacted me the most growing up were Fred Ruggles and Bama Hinton. I don't know what Coach Bama's real first name was, but Fred Ruggles was my first Little League football coach, and Coach Bama was our defensive coordinator. And I played middle linebacker and defensive tackle on Donald's Engine Service. Coach Bama gave me the nickname Mad Dog because I just was naturally pretty good at football, and he went and got me. And my mom still has it at home, but it's this, those soft chew bones that they have for like big dogs, like they sell in the PetSmart or whatever. But he got me one of those, and he airbrushed on the front of it, "Bad to the Bone," and then Mad Dog Gregory on the back of it. And just ever since then, I don't know. That dude believed in me so much that I just knew I could go out there and do it. And I'll never forget. Coach Bama passed away maybe like 4 years ago. His son and I, Mike, who actually went to Louisiana Tech with us, it, we're both still really good friends. Miss Pam, Coach Bama's wife, I still talk to them. That guy there, Coach Bama Hinton, definitely the most influential coach and mentor I've ever had.
So what do you say? Like, how did he help you? Like, what specifics like did he do to help kind of instill that confidence in you?
Well, I was a soft little kid. I'm not going to lie to you. I was more likely to cry than I was to fight. And he just, I don't know, man. He helped me to. He was just like, you're strong, but he's like, you're strong, but you're a baby. He's like, you got to use what you got, man. And my parents were divorced at this time. And so my dad wasn't always around to like, be that supportive voice in my ear or in my life. And that's not by his choice. My dad was there as much as he could be. He was a damn good father. But Coach Bama really stepped in and was that guy for me at a very young age. Like I said, 6, 7, 8 years old when I was playing, because I played for him for 3 straight years before I moved up to the next level of football. Right. And he, throughout junior high, high school, even into college, he made sure he kept up with me. He did what he could as a mentor for me. But I'm not gonna lie, when I got to high school, I stopped kind of listening to everybody else and kind of doing my own thing. But he just always showed me love, always reached out to me, even after I was apparent that I wasn't going to be some other world athlete or anything like that. He still was there for me and treated me just the same, like I was one of his own. So I mean, I'll never forget this old white man who didn't have to do nothing for me, just treating me, just doing good by me, man. And I've always really appreciated it.
Right. No, that's cool, man. I think a lot of us have, one or two influential people in our lives, man, as it relates to when we play sports that, you don't necessarily know why they did what they did, but they just poured that time and that effort into you. And, it meant the world to us because, like you said, sometimes you're coming in and you don't have all the confidence in the world and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. And you need that person that's going to give you that little extra attention, that little extra love that'll kind of instill that confidence in you until you can kind of take it on for yourself. So that's super cool. But so tell me about rugby, and please educate me as well, because as I recall, I don't necessarily remember you playing rugby, and I'm not saying that you didn't, but I don't recall you playing rugby in college. Where did rugby kind of come into the fold?
So quick question: Is this podcast PG-13? Because I'll censor what I'm about to say real quick if it isn't.
Please censor as much as you can.
All right. So I was walking through the student center one day, and as I'm walking by, you remember where Champ was and that little hook to the left in the Tonk, that Champ statue that was in there, and they had like the little booth behind it that all the fraternities and sororities were set up in. Well, the rugby team was there, and I walked by, and Kelly Irvin, who I've never met at this point, I've never seen this person before in my life. I walked by and he looks at me and he goes, "Man, you must be some kind of punk," but he used a different P word. And I looked at him and I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Okay.
Because Kelly Irvin's like all of 5'5", he's all of 110 pounds. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, "Yeah, man, you're not out here playing rugby. You must be scared or something like that." And you know me, that is exactly the type of way you need to talk to me to get me interested in something. And so I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Not only will I come play your game, I'm going to dominate your game. How about that? When's practice?" And I showed up to practice, and it was a love affair from then on because, I think I've told you before, when I did play football, I always played like fullback or linebacker, or when I was real young, I played right guard because we had a veer offense and they just needed me to pull, basically a fullback, but just, getting out in front of everybody. And so the appeal to rugby to me was that I could get the ball. And I didn't have to block because there's no blocking in rugby. And so they said, as long as you run hard, we'll give you the ball as much as you want to get it. The best way I can describe rugby is that it's kind of
So
like
what?
a.
So no, I was gonna ask what year that was when you first started playing.
So I got to Tech in '02. That had to be '05, '06 when I started playing rugby for. But I started doing it. Yeah, because Warren, I was when Kirby was hanging out real hardcore, we were playing rugby because I got him to go out there and play rugby a couple times. You, sir, were moving on to bigger and better things. I want to say that you were either getting ready to graduate or you had just graduated, and we were still acting up down there in Rusty.
Right. Yeah, I was out of there in '04.
Yeah. So yeah, right after you left is when I started playing rugby. But the best way to describe rugby to a person who doesn't watch the game, it's like team. You remember throwback tackle when you were a kid, where one guy would get the ball and everybody tried to tackle him, and then once he got tackled, you just threw the ball up in the air, and whoever caught it was then the guy, and you tried to tackle him. It's essentially team that, but with rules essentially. You can only advance the ball by kicking it off your foot. You can't advance it forward by throwing it, but you can lateral it backwards. You can only throw it to someone who's behind you before they receive the ball. So like soccer, essentially, right? Um, it's it's essentially it's the precursor to football. What a lot of people don't know is that the game, as they call it, between Harvard and Yale that was played in like the 1890s was actually a game of league rugby. So rugby's got league, union, and sevens, tens, but they have the same rules but just different number configurations. League is essentially just like football, which is you get X amount. It's four possessions that you have to go 20 meters. And if you get to 20 meters, your possession starts over. Or on the fourth possession, you kick the ball to the other guys and they start the same process coming back forward, just like American football. Or you can try to score. And if not, you have to turn the ball over right there to them going the opposite direction. Union rugby is more like soccer, which is possessions continuous. Once you lose possession, you have to give it back to the other guys. And it's 80. It's essentially an 80-minute fist fight, like I said earlier, but with tackling below the neck, and you have to wrap up. That's essentially like the best way to describe it for someone who's never seen it.
And you're playing now, so tell us a little bit about like the team you're playing on now, and I guess for the audience they don't know necessarily how old you are, so could you give them some insight on that, and maybe how long you plan on playing rugby? How much longer?
So I'm 36, and it's interesting that you say how much longer I plan on playing. I actually just played against Cincinnati's Division I team 2 weekends ago, and I said to everyone, I said, this is the first time I've actually felt old after playing a rugby match. So, Father Time is undefeated. I'm not Tom Brady. I don't got $1 million to pour into my body every night, every off season. So, and I'm not drinking avocado smoothies or nothing like that. So, hopefully, honestly, I hope to play rugby until I'm 45, 50-ish. But the competitive travel, try to win national championship side, I'd like to get two more good seasons out of it. But if I only get next year, then I'll be satisfied with it. Because like I said, I've been playing since '05. I've been playing football since I was 6 and 7 years old. So I mean, I've got 30 years of just running into people on my body. So I mean, eventually, it's going to be time to slow down. I try to take care of myself with the chiropractor and the massage and all that other stuff, but eventually it'll be time to slow down. And the teams that I play for, I actually represent.
No, I was just saying as it relates to that. How does that work with the leagues now? Because obviously, I don't have any knowledge on how the leagues are worked out now. So how are they formulated? Are you kind of like in a semi-pro, or how is that categorized?
So it's all amateur until you get to the professional level. And outside of the professional level, you can be paid to play. So I represent 4 teams right now. I represent the Pontchartrain Po Boys, which is the New Orleans City team that I play for. And there's 5 teams in the city of New Orleans: the Po Boys, the Crew, the Bayou Hurricanes, the Crescent City Blues, and the Rougarou. The Rougarou is our inclusive team. One thing about rugby, it's always been an inclusive sport. So it's very gay and trans friendly. We don't mind who you are as long as you're cool. Come out and play. But the Rougarou is that team where it's like the gay trans team or whatever, and we all support each other. Um, from those 5 teams, they select New Orleans Green and New Orleans Purple. New Orleans Green is the Division 2 team. That's the team that I play for mostly. New Orleans Purple is the Division 3 team, which is the step down, and that's the second team. That's mostly like weekend warriors and guys that want to just drink beer and smoke cigarettes, but
Right.
still say that they're out there doing something. The green team that I play for, Division 2, it's real serious rugby, and honestly, Division 2 rugby is probably the best rugby in the United States outside of the professional level because the Division 1 teams are so far apart that they don't get to play very often. Whereas Division 2, there's a whole lot of play. In New Orleans, it's us, Birmingham, Knoxville, Chattanooga, uh, Baton Rouge, and Mobile. That's our league. We play those guys, and then there's different like satellites where you go up into play the national title. New Orleans won the Division 3 national title in 2006, I think, and the Division 2 national title in 2008. So it's always been good team with good rugby. Like I said, there's Division 1 teams as well, but we don't have that here in New Orleans. And then above that, there is the professional team. We have the NOLA Gold here. I think that there is 12 professional franchises right now, and I have represented the Gold, but I am not signed to the Gold. If that makes sense. They have a roster of 40 or 50 guys. I think it's 40 guys. From that 40, there's the 28, which is the game day roster. There's 5 subs, and then there's 23 guys that dress, 15 starters, and what is that? 8 subs? No, 7 subs. Yeah. And once you come off the field, you can't go back on. So some guys play 80 minutes. Most guys play 80 minutes, but some guys might play 15, 20. The thing about rugby is it's very tactical because we have a guy who is a beast, but he doesn't have any wind whatsoever. So we save him for the last 15, 20 minutes of the match. We bring him in and we're just like, bro, shoot your load. Everybody's tired. Go. You know what I'm saying? Like, have fun. I also have been paid to play. I've been flown to Trinidad to play. I've been to Europe twice to play rugby. I've been to Canada twice. I've been out to Las Vegas to play, and I've been to Corpus Christi, Texas, and to Mexico City to play. And all of those trips I was paid for. So that's like, I don't know, I might get like $600 or $700, a little 150-day per diem, my plane tickets, all my food and everything taken care of. And plus, like, you'll get like gear, like bags and shorts and stuff like that.
That's a lot more than I knew. So no, I appreciate that. But to go back to your previous question that we were talking about, when you were talking about your coach that you said were influential to you. So as an athlete, do you think that it's important to have a coach that looks like you?
Absolutely. 100%, specifically in rugby. If I can give you a quick little anecdote, pardon me. In 2000, I want to say it was 2012, there's always been, just like the black quarterback, there's always been this thought in the rugby community, a very racist thought, quite frankly, that black players can run, black players can tackle, but black players can't pass. So when we have the ball, just like get with them, let these quote unquote beasts, do what they're going to do, but they're mindless. So you got to be there to support them because they don't know what they're doing. So in 2012, me and a bunch of black players in Texas, the Texas Rugby Union, this is when I was living in Shreveport, we got together and signed up to a tournament with an all-black team and molly-whopped everybody. I'm talking about, because, we like to celebrate when we score, and guys were like, you're celebrating again. So we celebrated everything. We yelled in their faces. We called them all kinds of names. We acted a plumb fool out there, bro. And they disbanded our team and told us we could never form it again. And when I say we beat the hell out of everybody, we beat the hell out of everybody. And it was the best feeling in the world because there were so many of those old white men there that would look at me and be like, "Oh, you're a good rugby player, but can you pass to the right?" You know what I'm saying? Like stupid stuff like that. That obviously I can pass to the right because I wouldn't be playing on this level if I couldn't. But for you to even say that to me, you know what I'm saying? So I, I love that, and absolutely, I agree. Having someone who looks like you, it's vital. Representation is vital because you need to be able to see yourself in positions of power in order to truly aspire to that. Like what's the thing that they used to say? As a black man, you could be anything in the world except president of the United States. You know what I'm saying? That's not true anymore. And
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
I love that. That's why I love these black quarterbacks. I love honestly. I tell you what, I really want. I want another white defensive back in the NFL like Jason Sehorn. A guy who's actually fluid and not just like a
Okay.
box safety. You know what I'm saying? Like I like all of that. I love all of that diversity because
Right.
you're never gonna get rid of the race problem in America because there's always gonna be that. But you're not truly gonna get past it as a society
Right.
until there's representation everywhere, in my opinion.
No, I mean that's a good point as it relates to representation. So, and that's why I kind of followed with that question because I know a lot of people just feel like, well, if you coached by anybody, you can do anything, and I think part of that is true, but to some degree, having somebody that looks like you that can have a little bit more, skin in the game as it relates to communicating, to knowing some of the challenges and obstacles that you face, they'll have a lot better chance of relating to you on your level. For the most part at certain times. So I think that's super important for most people to have that kind of representation as they're playing sports because it goes a very long way. Yeah, and I've seen you had some pretty strong opinions as it relates to the LGBTQ community, and I know you just mentioned something in reference to that earlier about a league that welcomes that group in as well. So what's your take on that overall? And I guess my viewpoint is, everybody should be all inclusive with everything. So, I know we see a lot of things as it relates to high school players, transgender players competing, against the boys and the girls as it relates to, whatever their identification is at that point. But I was a little curious to, just based on some of your comments earlier, how do you view that moving forward? As it relates to competition, and how do you see that, from your viewpoint on the rugby side?
So first, I'd like to say that I used to be a homophobe and a transphobe, and I don't even like using those terms because phobia implies a fear, which makes it rational. I like to say that I was homosexual hostile and I was transgender hostile, is what I was. And it was a problem within me as a man feeling insecure, not letting people just live their lives. And once I got past that, through the grace of God, quite frankly, I realized that, everybody is worthy of love. Everybody is worthy of seeking happiness. It might not be my particular version of happiness for you or whatever. It might not be what I would do, but that doesn't make it any less valid if it's not, not harming anyone else. You know what I mean? When it comes to the transgender thing, I'm no endocrinologist, but I feel like people are reacting to something that's not a problem. We hear about one transgender girl winning at one race and setting a state mark, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, these girls can't go to college. They can't even get degrees." Whereas if you look at the actual numbers, the amount of transgender girls competing is so small, it's negligible anyway. But you also go back and look at the results and you find out that this same girl has lost at every other meet that she's been at, like finishing 8th, 3rd, 5th place. She just happened to have a good meet. So to me, that doesn't mean that there's a problem with transgender girls dominating. It means that this particular girl had a good meet. But that's also to say, there's other sides of it where I am bigger and stronger than another 36-year-old woman who has my same height and frame. Quite frankly, I'm bigger and stronger than her. She shouldn't be full forced to tackle me playing rugby. Now after years of hormone therapy and the surgeries that folks have to change their bodies and whatnot. I mean, I don't know what that answer is to that question. I think that there's a study in the military actually in which it says that transgender women, men to women, transgender folks, their testing scores decrease, but they don't decrease to the point that they're even with women. So there is going to be a advantage, and I admit that. I'm also, like I said, not an endocrinologist, so I don't know how to answer that question. The only thing I could say is that I want everyone to be inclusive. I want everyone to be able to play sports. I don't know, honestly, what the answer is when it comes to combat sports, specifically for girls at such a young age with other transgender folks. I honestly don't know the answer. I wish in this perfect world that they could just compete and there was nothing to be worried about. But there honestly just is. And I don't like to be a purveyor of nonsense. I don't like to spread ignorance. I know how I feel about the situation, but I readily admit that I don't have all the answers.
No, and I don't think any of us have all the answers, and there are some significant challenges as it relates to that. There's going to have to be a broad, spectrum of dialogue and communication on all sides as it relates to that, because we know that with this moving forward, that there's just going to be more instances of it. So we just need to be open to having a dialogue to find a path moving forward. So I know a lot of people are against that and they're pushing back against that. But there's no way to truly kind of embrace people unless you can walk a mile in their shoes, and not necessarily saying that any of us will have the opportunity to do that. But I think the first step to do that is just to being open to have a conversation, open to sit down and have some true and honest dialogue as it relates to how you feel and how they feel, and understand that we're all people and we can come together and have a conversation and figure out a way to move forward. And the best way to do that is, to sit down and have a meal. I think when we can understand and do that as a people, to some degree, that'll start. It won't eliminate them, but it'll start to bring some of those walls down, as it relates to seeing somebody as a person. And I know a lot of times, you're on your corner, I'm on my corner, and it's a lot easier to hate somebody if you don't have to interact with them. It's a lot easier to be intolerable with somebody if you don't have to interact with them, because you can sit here with your prejudices and your biases, and you don't actually have to listen or talk or understand where that person's coming from. But once you sit down at a table and have some true transparent conversations with them, not necessarily saying that you're going to agree, but just taking that step to hear that person out, I think you can truly start to have true healing, true understanding, true communication that can be birthed out of that.
It's interesting that you say the food thing, because you ever notice how on a family, and I mean obviously the family gathering has a little bit to do with it, but at family events, folks that don't speak can at least like hold themselves together long enough to like behave in front of everyone. I do think that food does have like a calming and, I don't know, like a rationalizing effect on folks, like when you sit down to a good meal, because there's just certain manners that you're supposed to have and certain ways that you're supposed to behave. So I've never thought about that, but yeah, that's a very good point.
I've also seen you have some significant postings about racial injustice, and I know that you're playing rugby, obviously, like you mentioned earlier, as a predominantly white sport. So have you experienced some racial issues while playing rugby?
Absolutely. As I said, there's that thought process that all black athletes go through if they're trying to play a cerebral position as to whether or not they can play the position. So what you run into a lot, and this is not a shot at all South Africans. I know lots of South Africans that are really cool people, but because the apartheid is so recent in South Africa, the feelings of certain white South Africans are on par with the feelings of white people from like the 60s, as far as here in the United States. And so their word over there, instead of the N word, they say this word Kaffir, Caffir. And I don't know what it means because I've never looked it up, but I know that it's essentially the South African version of the N word. Now, I've been called that before by a South African dude, and I hit him in his face. Okay. It is what it is. Rugby is one of those sports where rugby is one of those sports where there's only one ref, and you know what I'm saying. I might not get you now, but I will get you. So uh, you do run into it periodically, but I'll be 100% honest with you, man. 99.9% of the guys that play rugby, they hear that, and the white dudes are pissed off too. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely a brotherhood thing. Um, I've been treated. Got one of the hardest parts about this past couple of years with Donald Trump being in office is that a lot of people that I play rugby with are Trump supporters, or if they're not Trump supporters, they're Republicans that are like, I don't see, but they live behind that veil of whiteness, and it was really hard not to throw folks away. It really was because as you know, definitely
Right.
I have very, very strong opinions about Donald Trump. And I honestly, the birth of my son is what's allowed me to be a calmer, more rational person because his life is the most important thing in the world to me. Him waking up, being happy, healthy, and fed and taken care of is the most important thing. And I can push aside politics and see that, for example, my buddy Hal, as much as he might be a Trump supporter, I've slept at Hal's house. You know what I'm saying? Hal's fed me before. Hal's come and picked me up when I was living in Shreveport and I was too drunk before Uber. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know what I was doing. Hal's come and picked me up and took me home. You know what I'm saying? Like, Hal's a good guy. He's just a Trump supporter. And it's real hard is what it is. It's real hard. It's also real hard to talk to other black people, and when they're like, why don't you just unfriend this guy, you're like, man, you weren't there when I needed him and he was there for me. You know what I mean? And I can't throw somebody away who specifically to me has had my back because we disagree on politics. I can't do it. And I understand that it's, endorsing certain, racist thoughts and views and whatnot, but I just can't throw somebody away who's been good to me. I just can't.
Right, and even behind that, I mean, and that's a good point as it relates to that because it's tough to just throw people away, and the way we are nowadays, that's kind of the theme of the day. Is if somebody doesn't agree with you, you just cast them out and it's done with. It's a lot tougher, and it requires a lot more maturity to sit down and continue to have a conversation and a dialogue with that person as it relates to some disagreements that you guys have politically. Because no, I mean, I have people today that I'm friends with that support Trump. I wholeheartedly disagree with them on all of their points, and we've had numerous conversations and debates here and there, and a lot of it is just ingrained in them, based on how they grew up, what their parents taught them, what they've been accustomed to in society. And a lot of that stuff is just tough to break over, a generation. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes intentionality to do all that. And that's why I see so much hope in the generations coming forward. Although, to your point earlier, there'll still be some of that racism and things of that nature that'll carry on. But from generation to generation, I'm starting to see less and less and less of it. And that's extremely encouraging to see. But it's no way we can continue to move the ball forward, if to that point, if we're still not, handing out that handing out that olive branch to still have those conversations. And, for the most part, they're really good. Even if we having those disagreements, they're really good people. It's just that we have some fundamental disagreements on, race, on policy, and things of that nature. But if you sit down and have some of those conversations, for the most part, you can come to an agreement on some very foundational things as it relates to how to treat people and access to care, and certain things like that. It's just, it's hard to tear something away from somebody if that's all they've known their entire life. And then, for it to be put in their face or thrown into their faces, the first thing that normally happens with most people is they get defensive. When you try to take away their way of life, or a lot of the financial institutions that have been set up for them to be successful. And I can even think of myself, man. If you try to take something away from me or my family, of course I'm gonna get defensive. Of course I'm gonna protect my family. Not necessarily looking at the root cause of how that was set up and how those institutions were set up to benefit one group and have others suffer. Like those scenarios are never initially looked at or initially discussed, because it just everybody goes into automatically defense mode and try to protect what they have and not necessarily look to help others. I mean, but like I said, I see that transition happening, although it's slow, and I know a lot of people would like to see it move along a lot faster. But I'm very hopeful based on what I've seen and the conversation I've had specifically with younger people about how they see life and how they see race and how they see equity and equality. I think that bar is definitely moving forward.
Who was it? Somebody, I can't remember who it was that said, I think it might have been Martin Luther King that said, the arc of justice is long, but it bends toward right. Something along those lines. It's like it's a long way getting there, but we're going to get there.
Right. But on a lighter note, I see that you've made claims that Serena Williams was the greatest athlete of all time. So I'm a little curious on why do you support that claim?
Serena Williams, when she shows up to a tournament, was the winner. It wasn't who was going to win the tournament. It was who was going to lose in the finals to Serena. And when Venus was there, it was how bad were they going to beat everyone to get them to the finals, or it was how was the seeding going to work out? Were we going to see Venus and Serena in the finals or quarters on one side instead of in the finals, which was the best match? Serena Williams, every single tennis player that has been ranked number one in Serena Williams' lifetime, she is beaten, except for the 4 that retired before she started playing tennis. Serena Williams has the fastest, most accurate serve of any woman ever, and her accuracy is even better than the men. I'm not saying that she could beat a man, but she's technically a better tennis player than most men are, because they get away with power that she doesn't have. Also, her power on the women's side, even though it's not what a man has, it's so overwhelming against these other girls. Another quote, Hugo Black, Supreme Court Justice, said when talking about what pornography was or was not, he said, "I know it when I see it," right? And with Serena Williams, I know it when I see it.
I do remember that.
She's amazing. I watch her and I know what's going to happen. It's like watching the old UConn women's basketball teams. When they went, what was it, with Breonna Stewart, when they went 4 years in a row and won every single national title and didn't lose a game. It was just like, they walked out there and they just destroyed everyone. It was obvious that they were better than everybody else. And with Serena Williams in an individual sport, she's done it. She's got all the hardware. She's got all the accolades. And like I said, when she showed up, it wasn't who was going to beat her. It was who was losing to her and where was she beating Venus. I mean, that to me, that says it all.
How do you correlate that as it relates to then Tiger would? I saw Tiger the same way. It was pretty much him versus the field. And, whenever he showed up, it was basically saying, hey, who was going to come in second place?
And yeah, you're absolutely right. Tiger's winning percentage in a more precision-based sport like golf is very, very, it's otherworldly. It's outstanding. And quite frankly, when I'm talking about my athlete Mount Rushmores, in my lifetime at least, you got to put Tiger on there. You put Serena on there, probably Tom Brady. And then, me, because I'm a LeBron stan, I would put LeBron there, but I wouldn't be mad if somebody put Michael Jordan there. He definitely is in that conversation. I don't know. With Tiger, it was like, let's see. I don't know if it was more like, let's see what happens on day 3 with Tiger. Whereas with Serena, it was like, all the way in ink, put her in the finals and figure out who it is. But again, very good argument. So I can't take anything away from Tiger Woods.
So I do have a question. So what are your thoughts, and I don't know if you even heard about it, when Major League Baseball decided to move the All-Star game due to the restrictive voting rights that were passed in Georgia?
I think that there's nothing that's going to make those folks do the right thing except for embarrassing them and taking away what those folks in Atlanta want, what people in Georgia want. So having Delta come out and say what they said, having Coke come out and say what they said, having Major League Baseball remove, you have to punish the politicians through the constituents in order to make things happen. So these people are about to be pissed off that giving somebody a water in a line a felony, which is ridiculous, because there's very restrictive voting. Like, for example, in New York, you can only give people water if it's worth less than $1. You know what I'm saying? There's very restrictive voting laws already on the books, but these are specifically targeted towards Black and brown people. And, even a person who doesn't care about Black people, a racist, the fact that he's going to not be able to take his kid to see the All-Star game in Atlanta when that's been his plan the whole time is going to punish those politicians at the voting booth more than them just letting Black people vote however they're going to vote. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with it. Right. I hate it for the people, but you have to punish these You can't just say this guy's bad because if he gets reelected, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? You have to punish the constituents in order to punish the politicians, unfortunately. And I 100% agree with it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've heard about this. So in Texas, the governor came out, I believe it was either yesterday or today, stating that he was actually scheduled to throw out the first pitch at the Rangers game today. And he wrote a letter to the Rangers and to MLB stating that, based on, the situation in Georgia, that he was not going to throw out the first pitch today. And he's, I guess, quote unquote, banned all All-Star games and all MLB-related activities in the state of Texas, which was a bit confusing because, obviously you're damaging the economy and other things like that just to try to prove a political point. But it just goes to show that, if you're truly going to lead, then you need to lead by example and have a conversation and not, kind of have this back and forth. I'm taking this game from you, so now you can't come to this state back and forth. So it was a little disheartening to see the leadership here in Texas going that route, as opposed to just, trying to have a conversation.
What I would say is that Greg Abbott, I think that's y'all's governor's name, definitely has, and I know you know this, I'm a psycho about politics, so yes, I have heard and read about this already. He has aspirations for higher political office, but what a lot of people aren't thinking about is that the Republicans are used to performative acts. This is the same thing as whenever city pools were desegregated, white neighborhoods draining their pools. Well, if you Black folks can come, then can't nobody swim. The conservatives are known for spiting their face, cutting off their noses to spite their faces. They will hurt themselves in order to win. What is it? A Pyrrhic victory is what it's called, where you win but you don't really win. And Greg Abbott has aspirations for higher office, but also what he knows is that, again, coming back to this like gang mentality that we have amongst our politics, he knows that if he goes out there and pretends that, he's standing up for Texas, he's standing up for American ideals, he's standing up for, Texas's and liberty and all this other nonsense that is an ideal but not a tangible thing, then people who are uninformed voters hear those things. They hear liberty. They hear, individual rights. They hear states' rights. They hear woke. If you watch conservative media right now, all they're talking about is this is woke this is woke that. They called Major League Baseball woke. They called a bunch of rich billionaire white men woke. Because it's just a pejorative term now. And they will, like I said, they'll cut their noses off to spite their face, and that's exactly what Greg Abbott's doing. He's not doing nothing but pissing folks off, but he's counting
Right.
on the voting populace being low information enough to where they see the R and they heard that he was standing up for them, so they're just going to vote for him without doing any more research. Earlier, you were talking about I can't remember exactly what the point what you were talking about before we got on here, and I was going to ask you this. Sometimes I'm sitting around and I think about it, and I almost want to have a poll test, and I know where that comes from, keeping people that look like me from voting. But you hear people talk sometimes and you're like, you get to vote? Like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And you get to vote and have a say in my
Right.
life, And so, I mean, obviously that's all, conjecture and really a very tongue-in-cheek joke. I don't want any sort of poll taxes. I honestly would like voting to be compulsory and everybody be forced to vote. But I mean, that's where I get sometimes. When every time you see a conservative doing something like that, it's really just performative. Mississippi right now, Tate Reeves, their governor, isn't taking the $400 billion that Joe Biden is trying to give them to help with the vaccine rollout and help with
Right.
opening up the Obamacare healthcare exchanges to get people registered who don't have insurance right now. They're literally saying no to $400 billion just to be performative.
Right.
Both parties suck. Both parties are
Yeah.
racist.
And
The Democrats are paternalists and they think they know better than us. The Republicans don't want us to exist on a certain level. So, I mean, that's where we're at with all that. The Republicans are going to be
right.
performative and they're going to hurt themselves, but they are just, I mean, it's a cult over there, in my opinion, quite frankly. And they'll just vote, 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 vote. I mean, Donald Trump was the first time, people are like, oh, 80 million people voted for Joe Biden. 75 million people voted for Donald Trump. Like, 75 million people thought that was the way to keep our society. And regardless, take away all of his crassness and boorishness or whatever, the way the country was heading, the vaccine rollout, the way that he handled all that, that in and of itself should have been disqualifying. And so when I saw that people were dying, or the people would go to Trump rallies and be like, yeah, I know someone who's gotten COVID and died, or I know someone who's gotten really sick from it, or I had it and I almost died, but I'm still here with my president. When I saw that, I knew that we're doomed. We're literally doomed because people are stupid. And I I mean, I don't know what the answer is to that, because
Well,
substance doesn't matter anymore. It's what it looks like, to people. But it's breaking it down to the simplest terms to folks, and whether that's right or wrong, however that makes them feel, is how they're going to vote, instead of investigating what the actual root of stuff is.
oh yeah. I mean, a lot of people are just misinformed. They prefer somebody tell them how to vote and what to vote and what to believe and what to think, as opposed to doing the research on themselves, and that's on both sides.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate, because I know a lot of people have paid a significant price, the ultimate price, for us to have the opportunity to vote, and for us to continually not take it seriously, as it relates to being informed on how we're going to vote. I think it's a tragedy. But we can just continue to beat the drum and try to get the information out there to encourage people to read and to do things on their own and educate themselves, and at least provide some literature for them to educate themselves. But for the most part, what I've seen, the conversations I've had, they're if they see somebody that looks like them, they're for the most part, going to vote in that direction, and that's on both sides, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't care really. I don't care how you vote. I just want you to be educated in your vote. So we're going to agree. We're going to disagree as it relates to how we vote, what we believe, what we think is a priority, what we think is important. As a single 22-year-old white male, your priorities will be different than a 40-year-old married black man with children. So what you feel as a priority in your candidate will be different than what I would feel as a priority in my candidate. But and that's okay. It's perfectly okay for us to have those discussions, no disagreements, but be educated. For the most part. So, but I want to hold you up too much, man. I guess one of my last questions was you spoke earlier about your son Clyde. So as it relates to everything you've kind of been through as it relates to sports, what are you going to be teaching him when it comes to sports that you've learned and some of the things that you've had to endure that you kind of coach him on not to go through?
I'm not gonna lie to Clyde. When I was younger, I was really good at football, and everybody was like, "Oh man, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, blah blah blah," and they kind of built me up. And so when I didn't achieve on the level that I felt I should be achieving on, not to say that I was a scrub or nothing, but when I wasn't all district, all state, stuff like that, I wasn't being selected to travel on teams as I had been, because I played on the, I don't know if I told you this before, but I played on the USA under 15 team football wise when I was a kid. So I was pretty darn good, but like I said, it just it changed up for me. I'm gonna try to meet his expectations or measure his expectations. If he says that he wants to do something, then I'm going to try to support him in any way possible. He's definitely going to play team sports until he's 12 because, like I said, learning to win and lose and to follow and lead is very important, and working within a group is very important. And I just think that being in sports establishes that, also establishes a certain sort of camaraderie amongst you and your friends, and also kind of teaches you how to defend yourself. If you get hit, and you find out, it actually doesn't hurt that bad. And as much as I might want my son to never like be involved in any sort of fight or violence or anything like that, if you got to punch somebody in the face, I'm going to punch somebody in the face. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I also would like to tell him I also want him to participate in multiple sports. I want him to get a good view of, play baseball because it's a failure sport. You know what I'm saying? You got to work on it real hard. The reward is not as great as the work is. You know what I mean? Play football, run into people, find out if you like getting hit, play basketball. Maybe you like to shoot the ball. Hell, dance. If you want to dance, we're going to be I'm going to be there danced out, whatever it is you want to do. You know what I'm saying? I just want him to be happy and to participate and to learn those social skills that'll make him a successful member of society, eventually a good husband, and hopefully a good father as well.
That's a great answer, man. I think for the most part, that's what we want for all of our kids, is to have fun and for us to be there to kind of direct and guide them. And if it's something that they're doing that we feel like they're not going to be, beneficial in, it's okay for them to fail. It's okay for them to move forward and continue to try it. But, we just want to be there to guide them and direct them and give them the insight and direction that maybe we didn't have. So I think that's really important. So, but no, I got a couple quick fire questions for you before we get you out of here. So I'll give you two options and you have to choose one. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. And you mentioned this earlier. Michael Jordan or LeBron?
LeBron James.
All right. iPhone or Android?
Android.
Florida State or the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Ooh. Oh. I'm going to take this question to mean one team will win a championship ever again and another team will never win a championship again. The Pittsburgh Steelers already have 7. I would definitely give it to Florida State, mainly because college football, there's still the joy of it not being a job. And I like the idea of guys who are going to be accountants and teachers and football coaches and whatever get the opportunity to live their dreams out. So on a high level. So definitely Florida State.
And last but not least, NCAA football or Madden?
NCAA, I like the recruiting.
You like the recruiting. Good deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no, man. That's all I had on the day, man. I appreciate your time, man. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your time. Any closing thoughts or remarks you got before we get out of here?
I would like to say that I just want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for giving me the opportunity to participate in all the sports that I participated in, to be relatively injury free. He gave me a son that I am just head over heels in love with, and best thing that I ever did. I want to thank you, Marvin, because people aren't going to know this from the podcast, but you were definitely a mentor to me when you didn't have to be. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you. I know I said that in your little birthday message, but I just want to reiterate it to you again, my man. I truly appreciate you. Times that you didn't have to tell me to iron my clothes or brush my hair or go to bed or go to class or stop doing whatever. You didn't have to tell me that stuff, and you did, man. I really appreciate you. What is it? Each one teach one. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem, man. But no, thank you, man. Great to connect back with you, man, and hopefully we'll stay connected. So,
absolutely, man. Thanks for reaching out. I really appreciate it.
But all right, thank you. Thank you for listening to the More Than Sports podcast. Please like, subscribe, and set your notifications so you can be up to date on new content. Also, if you have a story you'd like to share, please reach out to us at mystory@morethansportspodcast.com.